Good morning, everyone. Slowly but surely, I see you all coming in. Excuse us for being a couple of minutes behind. Very sorry about that. Good morning to you, Lori. Good to see you.
Hello, Lauren, and why don't you give me the "my kids are back in school" smile?
I know.
Everybody's like, "Kids back in school."
Oh, yeah.
So everybody in the audience, I'm going to give you a second. Join Lauren in the "kids back in school" smile, okay? I never had kids. I don't understand, but all I know is that at this time of the year, all the parents start smiling for some reason. Not sure what that is, but some reason.
It's a beautiful thing for sure.
Well, Lauren, we got an interesting show today. So we're going to talk. I got to say, though, before I talk about today, last week ended up being just a fascinating show, wasn't it? I mean, for you guys that were here last week and for you guys that won't, we talked about funeral services. Now, that sounds like that wouldn't be a fascinating, interesting show, but I knew our guest was a wonderful, beautiful person to have on, and it was just great. It was just great.
It was awesome for sure. And to your point, like, even though I mean, not many of us are in that industry, but there were so many points addressed and just stories shared that resonated with everyone. There were so many people who were just so grateful to hear the story and how she was able to make her transitions and make the decisions she was able to make and the information she provided related to like partnerships. That was really good too. So
I know
I
it
loved it.
comes down to a main point that I tell people all the time. Yes, each company has different aspects to it, and there are different parameters, but it's just like so many things in life. When we look at the core foundation of achieving anything, whether I'm running a marathon or I'm running away from a bear chasing me, I'm using the same mechanics of the body, right? How's that for an interesting little analogy? But business has the core fundamentals, and we can learn so much by just talking with different companies and see how they're applied. But we're going to learn today too, because we're going to have a different type of company than I've had on in the past, just like before. So, Lauren, I'm going to hand it to you to get us started here.
All right, so let me jump into it. I'm going to take a couple of seconds and share my screen. There we go. That is not it.
Well, we all got an announcement. Lauren has just got switched over to a brand new computer. She's got the little headphone on this morning. I told her, I don't recognize you. You're
I know.
looking kind of strange and official. So give her a break today. She's got new technology going on all around her.
Thank you, Lori. And good morning again to everyone. My name is Lauren Simpson. I'm with the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center. We're a national program with over 1,000 locations throughout the country, and we offer no-cost services to local small businesses. They're at no cost to you because your tax dollars have already taken care of our fees. So please, please be sure to get in contact with us so that we can assist you through your journey. Now, for the Los Angeles network, which is the network that I represent, we have locations throughout the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And you can see those centers that we have represented on the map in front of you. So go ahead and take a look there. If you're in any of those counties, again, LA, Santa Barbara, or Ventura, please be sure to get in contact with us. Again, you'll want to do so because we offer no cost business advising. And so you're able to sit one-on-one with one of our business experts. You might even be lucky enough to sit with our guru of numbers, Miss Lori Williams. But you're able to sit with business experts in various industries. So they can assist you with marketing plans as well as business plans. They can let you know what sort of licenses or permits you might need. Again, taxes and finances, whatever you need during your entrepreneurial journey, we have resources for you. We have experts for you. We also offer virtual trainings, much like the show you've joined today, and a few trainings that I believe Lori is going to share with you in just a bit. So again, we are here to help. Please get in contact with us today. You can reach us by phone, 866-588-7232. or go online, smallbizla.org/new client. If you are outside of the LA, Ventura, or Santa Barbara counties, please go to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. You do a quick stop share. Quick housekeeping. Please put all questions into the Q&A. Again, questions into the Q&A. I did see a note that the chat has been disabled, so I'm going to go in and see what magic I can work behind the scenes. Otherwise, all questions into the Q&A, and then the chat will be up and running, and you'll be able to put any kind of feedback or notes or what have you in there.
Yeah, and if you have a problem getting the chat running, Lauren, just use the Q&A. That's fine. And while I'm talking about different things that I'm going to talk about in a minute, you've got a few things in the Q&A for you to address too. So I'm going to leave those for you, okay?
Thank you.
Anything else, or am I going to take it from there? Because I kind of just did.
Oh, no, take it on.
That's my typical, well, I just took it over. Yeah, that's where I am. Okay, guys. Let's get started today. I want to just mention a couple things. So I am finally in the process of getting my new finance webinars. I used to have it every single month and I kind of skipped October. So Lauren is going to put either in the Q&A or the chat these links. So some of you are familiar with some of the financial webinars I do. Once again, these are through the SBDC. So these are at no charge. I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. I also have a sales tax webinar, and I'll be announcing that probably next week. I'll have it set up. But these are set up, and I added a new one. So the first one, what you need to know about accounting and financial record keeping, that goes through everything from what records you need to keep, what tax reports you're going to have data for, etc. It's kind of a basic of QuickBooks Online, desktop, etc. I added a new one using an Excel document for financial modeling and forecasting. That is, as some of you are familiar with, who's been following my show for a while, when I start with a blank Excel document, I'm going to turn this into more of a webinar where I have time to go slower and explain more. So I added that new class to my series of Financial Literacy 101. And then my third is more advanced on how to analyze your company's financials for better decision making. You can take them in any order, but I do suggest doing the Excel document and then the next session on how to analyze your company's financials. These are going to be continuously offered throughout the year, so you can pick up on one as you need to, but those are coming up, pretty exciting to watch out for. Now, on another part of what's coming up in the following shows. Next week, I'm bringing back Nate Jemison. Some of you, once again, frequent flyers, you probably watched when Nate was on prior. He is at the SBDC as well. And he's the director of the Access to Capital team. And last time we talked about financing, lending, all different aspects of what you can do to get different types of financing for your company. We're going to discuss this. I told Nate, I want to add on a component. I want to speak about what kind of documents do you have prepared and ready for a lender. That's a part of the special services that the SBDC offers, is helping clients get their documents ready. I wanted to talk about that so you guys that are even looking for financing perhaps down the road can know today what you need to do to get prepared. Then after that, we got our famous Deborah Darris come back, and Deborah and I collectively are going to have a discussion on mindset for a successful business. And then after that, we got Christine Thompson. She's a partner in JAC Interiors, been working with them for a very long time. And she's going to talk about how she took some of the early lessons that I gave her in Excel documents and been incorporating them within her company for over a decade now, I believe, guys. It's been a while. And she's going to say what she's learned, what her processes is, and also how her company has pivoted and changed, not only through COVID, but just throughout the years in general. So that's what we got coming up in the very near future. Now, today is really exciting because I am kidding collectively calling Kalie, our next guest, Miss Hollywood. I say that because in the last, I don't think I've had really any guest come on that I would say work within the entertainment industry. And as many of you know, LA hub, California hub for the entertainment industry. It's a huge industry, and so many people want to know, how do I get involved in? What do people do in the industry? And also, from the different consulting I've done with companies in the entertainment industry over the time periods, I know that there's also nuances to it. Not only is there nuances to getting involved and working within it, but there's nuances to what I would call project work. Everything from understanding how to organize the financial information for the projects to make sure you're profitable, to understanding the billing and sometimes the payment terms. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this industry, and I only know it from afar, having consulted with clients throughout it. Definitely not an industry that I understand every ins and outs, but it's still a fascinating one, and there's so many lessons to learn. So I'm really, really excited to bring Kalie on today. She and her partner own let me try to say it again, Art Mafia. I mean, a name like Art Mafia, the person's got to be fun, right? Okay, just that name alone. Their company provides creative services to the entertainment industry, and Art Mafia designs and produces large-scale experiential pop-ups and gallery exhibits. That sounds interesting within itself. So, Kalie, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey, it is so great to have you here. So why don't you just start out? I mean, creative people are born creative, possibly. They don't get that argument on that, right? But you obviously have gone through a process from when you first started your career. How did you start? How did you get to where you are today? I know there's a long length of time there, but give us some highlights so we can start kind of feeling where you've been and where you came from.
Yeah, I think from a very young age, my mom was an artist, and she was always building or making anything between, I guess, like we reframed my basement, and she did all of the construction work for it, to doing like faux finish paint on my grandma's friends' houses. We did made jewelry and paintings. My mom was just always picking up a new craft. So from a very young age, I got to learn a little bit of everything. And I didn't really know you could have a career in that. So it was exciting when I found that you could, in fact, use all of these really random skills and make a job out of it. But
that sounds like fun. I had a friend a long time ago, and she was very creative, and she was in graphic design. And she said that her mother was also an artist, and every day her mother would draw a cartoon character on her paper bag to take to lunch in school.
Oh.
And I thought, how cool was that? But I gotta imagine it must have been pretty cool to work with your mother, making walls and everything from there.
Yeah, it was definitely influenced me much later. I think I was young when I started in this business. I was about 21.
I was going to ask you, so how did you start? So you said you figured out how to make a living. So how did you first figure out to make a living in the industry? What did you do?
Well, I got a job as a production assistant before I knew anything about the industry, really. So I really ran waters and snacks to people and made sure nobody walked onto the set. And I did that for about 6 months, and then moved to Los Angeles, and then continued to do that job. But while I was on set, I got to see all of the different departments. Mm-hmm. So we got to, it was a pretty incredible experience, because we were on some of the biggest budget movies at the time. So even though I was an assistant, I was getting to see top of the line set building and camera work and stunts. And I really got to observe each one of these departments at their highest caliber. And so I was able to kind of see that there was an opportunity. I didn't even know art department was a thing you could do. Right. So when I got to see that they were carrying these, at the time we were working on Transformers, and so we got to see these people carrying in giant pieces of cement, but they weigh like nothing, and roll in cars that were on fire. And I had no idea that, I guess I just hadn't thought that that was an opportunity that I could pursue.
Yep,
So
I have to tell you. So first of all, that must have been exciting at that age to be exposed to all this. But you made it while you were saying it, before you even talked about the cement. I had a childhood memory from this. I grew up in the country in upstate New York. You know, real podunk country. Nowhere near Hollywood. And at that time, I had this big crush on Steve Majors. I think his name was the $6 Million Man, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I would watch him on TV pick up that rock. And I'd be like, oh my God, right? A long story short, we go on vacation to Hollywood. You know where this is going. We tour Hollywood studios. There is Steve Major's rock. I walk up, I pick it up, and that was my first crush being destroyed overnight immediately. And I will never forget that.
you were like, this weighs nothing.
I know, it was my first downfall to say, okay, my man idol is not what I thought at a very young age.
Oh, that's so funny and kind of disappointing.
So anyway, so that sounds like it was highly exciting. How did you go from that spot and where did you go next?
Well, so I learned that I was like, oh my gosh, you can make props and stuff. You don't have to go to school for it really. The industry is deeply rooted in networking. So it is, I mean, like any other industry, I guess, I don't know if it is like any other industry in the sense that getting your next job is entirely dependent on who you are and how you network and how you interact with people. And I guess you would get that in a normal industry, but because we have such short-lived jobs, you'll have a job that's a day or a job that's 3 days. You rarely need a resume. You just need somebody to refer you, and then you're on to the next. So
Interesting to me because like I've been in the finance, I've been in the different industries, and networking and referrals, are introductions to client, but it comes with a resume. And what in the finance industry, which I thought was really weird when I got into the heart of it in the investment banking and stuff in LA, but it was about going to these meetings, which were, luncheons and fancy dinners and stuff like that. So my question is, when you are networking in your industry, where does the networking take place? Is it at parties? Where's the places that networking takes place in that industry?
Anywhere and everywhere. Los Angeles, I have grown to not be very fond of the typical question when somebody meets you is, what do you do? Right? So, you introduce your name and then right after that you tell them what you do so that they can say, oh, okay, here, I know so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And that's pretty typical of it. But our networking mostly takes place on set. So you're talking to all of the different departments. If you're wanting to be in production, you're talking to everyone that is in production, and hopefully they can refer you to the next job, or someone's going to roll into the next job and you can hop on that with them. So it's really about making friends on set, every new set that you're on, so that you can just keep rolling through.
Interesting. So once you kind of get in the door into the playground, so to speak, then you are exposed to all the situations to go from there. So so I can see now how this is progressing. What happened next?
So I started talking to the art department because I was like, okay, I really was doing well in production, and more production people were hiring me for every job. And I started doing commercials, and you realize that that's a different world than film, and then independent film is a different world than commercial or TV. And I really started playing around in all of these different industries within the industry, right? And I was still having a hard time getting into the art department because it's at the time, and I think it might still be this way, you couldn't assist in art department. The union had closed that role. So you really had to kind of sneak your way in through production. And so I just kept pursuing the art department, and eventually I got a couple of jobs here and a couple of jobs there working as an art assistant. And then on the weekends, I would apply for art department like no money music videos on Craigslist so that I could get some experience doing that. And I would do, very low to no pay projects just to start meeting people, because that's how you network.
You
And
were
so,
the starving artist. You were the complete definition of a starving artist, huh?
oh yeah, I mean, I think there was a fun period of time where I was working on Beverly Hills Chihuahua during the day. I was working on Batman at night as an assistant, and then on the weekends I would be working on some horrible music video that they gave me $17 and I had to find a way to repurpose everything in the house and make it look okay. And so I was working maybe 3 days straight, and like sleeping for one and then going back and doing it again.
Now, from a legal business perspective, like, you're also forced to become kind of were you a sole prop working as a gig worker then? I mean, because in the other end of it, you also are having to, this is one of the conversations I remember we had early on, you're also having to function as a business owner. So as we're talking about you trying to navigate your way around to find opportunities for projects, you also by default are having to navigate the business world and the accounting world and the finance world and the tax world and all that. Would that be correct at that point?
Yeah, and this was, I mean, this is about 13 or 14 years ago that I'm talking. So things were a little bit different then too. I think just as the way we would file paperwork would be different. As a contractor, it was a lot looser, but it was also a lot less regulated as far as the entertainment industry goes. So, I remember certainly not getting paid enough for a job that we should have been paid more for. And, companies really took advantage of that. So it was kind of this, I didn't know any better either. I was young. I didn't understand how those kinds of things would work. So I quickly had to figure it out. So I had to understand what my rights were as a contractor, and then how to also like file my taxes at the end of the year and how those types of things would unfold. So I think by year 3 of designing, I had listed myself as um, as like a sole designer, right? And but hadn't fully launched into an LLC.
Got it.
Just and this again, like as a creative person, wasn't necessarily what I'm good at, as far as setting up a business and structure and everything in that sense. But I was willing to figure it out. So my first company that I launched was in I believe it was 2015, 2016. And we made art films and commercials, and it started to become impossible to actually work without a company. So I was getting hired to design these bigger and bigger sets, and it was easier and safer for me and my crew if I just incorporated and took that on instead of.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting, especially for the audience, and one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on as well. So often, I hear it in different ways, but the expression is, I'm not good at this. I'm a creative person. This isn't my forte. And I'd like to express two things, and this is where I think the audience is, beginning to and is going to learn so much from you. One, I think that in many ways, and my term I've been using for the last 2 weeks seems to be a double-edged sword. That seems to be my favorite expression. I think over the time period, it's a double-edged sword that, yes, as you said, there's more regulation in some areas that perhaps people were not getting the rights that they should. But I believe, especially in the last 15 years, I've seen just functioning as a sole prop. I say always just knitting doggy sweaters and selling them at a flea market with all of the sales tax and the regulations, and you end up having to have a company sometimes. And if you want to go into a trade show, they may require you having an EIN number. It's gotten so complicated that the little mom and pop sole prop, that term doesn't even make sense anymore. anybody that wants to engage in any kind of business activities has to become comfortable and familiar in the legal and finance world, just like you're starting to express. So I think that's a great aspect of learning. So when you formed your first company, was because I met you after you formed your first company, you were kind of telling little stories from it. What did you form? How did you form it at, and what did you learn in that first trial run from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is totally accurate as far as being it really impossible to operate as anything other than a company, which I think is so interesting. We're branding ourselves. We have to become a company no matter what, even if you just wanted to, yeah, knit doggy sweaters. um, so I remember being kind of nervous to do this because I hadn't gone to business school. I hadn't even gone to college. And I felt ill-equipped to run a business, but I wasn't going to have a job if I didn't teach myself how to run a business.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of research and failing just immensely. Like I failed so many times in every way possible. Understanding like the deadlines and don't miss a postcard, even if it looks like junk mail.
Yeah,
So
and elaborate on that, Kalie, because that's such a good point. I think that, in fact, I remember there was something you were dealing with that we talked about when I first spoke with you about some missed payment that you had, which I don't recall because missed payment, missed regulations is like my theme with most people.
yes, I mean, the I had gone through, the initial opening, and not only were we a small company, but we specialized in art films, which we had a couple that took off and became, was in galleries around the world and is now part of Stanford's curriculum. Like it really took off and did really well. And we rolled into doing a couple other films and designing some large sets. So as far as creatively, we were really taking off. And each one of those projects is kind of its own company to run. You have your own set of employees, everyone's doing their, a different task, and you're having to manage all of those. So managing that while also running the company and making sure that like our books are equaling any, that they're at least balanced. I don't know if we made any money really, other than to survive. We certainly didn't make a profit. But our goal was to really create a safe space for different types of artists to come in, because I realized how hard it was for me to get into the art department and what a male run industry this was, and giving opportunities to women and queers in a space in this industry that I hadn't experienced yet in the industry. And so I mean, this was, a while ago now. So a lot has changed, and there's plenty of spaces like that now, and there will be more to come, I'm sure. But at the time, it just wasn't a profitable scenario. So
And then you brought partner. One of your things too with forming the company is no longer Kalie on your own with only your skills and knocking on doors. You could bring other people in, and you formed companies with other people that you could share in projects, share in experience, share in opportunities. Did I say that right? Because I remember
yeah,
you explaining. I don't know if I got that completely right.
I realized early on that was not the one to do the bookkeeping and all of the business management, and really wanted to have a partner in that. And what I had realized was that, especially in this industry, nobody wants to do the business part. They all want to be creatives. So it fell on me to continue to do the business. And eventually, those partners and I did not get along anymore. And I was able to cut ties with them. I say I probably held on far too long because at some point, I I don't know. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say that this industry is kind of sneaky and full of sneaky people. So you have to make sure that being from the Midwest and like really excited and wanting to make cool stuff, that not everybody shares in your same morals. So it was kind of a crash course in being better at business, being able to see through people and being able to see or read situations better. Um, so not only organizing my company, making sure that I'm making all of my deadlines, making sure all of my projects are being delivered to the quality that I would want, but also understanding how people work in a business setting or in an entertainment business setting.
It's so true. And growing up in a small country town where I didn't even have a street light when I was a kid, and then finally finding myself to LA, and then finding myself in the finance world, investment banking, and around all that. I share that experience with you. I was kind of shocked and saw a lot of things going on that I wasn't comfortable with. So I get you on that level. What I think is really interesting, and the takeaway, and I'm going to kind of word it just slightly different than you, Kalie, and tell me your thoughts on this, is that, as you started talking, you were someone creative and had a love and a passion, like so many entrepreneurs. They talk about, I got this passion, I want to do that. And then you found out by default pretty quickly, with it slamming you in the face, that the business aspects, the legal aspects, the financial, the accounting, you have to get your hands around that to be able to do what you love. Because if you think about it, I mean, in the way that you tell the story and your experiences, you started a company, it was a corporation, you brought on partners, it didn't work out, you got out of that situation, all that's true. But when you look at it legally, you had some of the issues that big companies had. You had a legal corporation, you had a partnership, they were on the documents, you had to dissolve or change out the partnerships on the documents. I mean, to the audience, I mean, Kalie expresses it in a way she understands it, but the fact is you had to go through and be a quick learner of a lot of legal stuff right away.
Yeah, and also like navigating websites and which types of paperwork that need to be filed and which it was yes, it was a crash course in running a business in a legal way, and making sure that, I think I'm a meticulous person. I want to make sure I'm doing everything correctly, even if I had no training in it. I will go the extra mile to make sure that I get the training so that I can do this correctly. Also, like very, very nervous about filing anything incorrectly or on the wrong date. And it was very nerve-wracking. So I remember I had hired an accountant, and he was awful. He was so bad. He was supposed to be my business advisor, and he lost all of my W-2s. Like, I was like, how are you doing this? It was kind of a comedy of errors, my first company. There was a lot to learn from it. So when I launched my second company, it was kind of dissolving with my business partners on the first one. I was getting hired to do mostly gallery work and wanted to separate myself from film a little bit more. And so I started moving into doing these experiential pop-ups. I think the one we became most well known for in our first year of business was this Stranger Things TV show. They did a pop-up for an ice cream shop that the kids would frequent. So we turned a bunch of Baskin Robbins into Scoops Ahoy from Stranger Things. And we ended up making like #1 in Ad Age. It was just kind of proof to like taking my old company, ridding myself of my old partners, and kind of having a better, more confident direction for myself. And I had joined forces with my business partner, Claire. And we had a third business partner at the time. And the three of us really kicked butt for that first year. We, opened a space. We had our own fabrication company. We were building everything that we were actually installing and designing. And, we went from having maybe 5 employees to having about 30.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, by the time that I had met up with you, you had a lot going on. Like I said, in your, in your eyes, you were like, okay, we design this as like financially and legally, you've got a lot going on here.
Well, not only are we now, I had gone from kind of doing small stuff that would be umbrellaed under a bigger company. So we would be hired, and it was usually just me and my partners that would be invoicing, and then the project costs. And then all of the employees would still be under the umbrella of the company. So now we've shifted, and all of those employees are actually my company's employees. And so I ended up taking on a lot more. Having learned what I learned with my first company, I organized myself a lot better and was able to start expanding. But once we started expanding, like, it was kind of, I joke that it was like a 2-year-old running down asphalt hill. You're like, well, I hope she makes it. She's going very fast, and she just learned how to walk, but we've got a lot of momentum.
Well, and I want to go back a little bit, and I wanted to bring this up, and I don't want to lose it. There was 2 things that you mentioned. You talked about being very detailed, very, very meticulous, and about being nervous about filing anything wrong after that first experience. Now, what's interesting, in a complete positive way, that's what I first identified when I started working with you guys. I noted that you had some Excel documents, not everything. You were trying really, really hard to have a correct system in place. And guys in the audience, keep in mind, and this is what I've seen, when you talk about these entertainment industries, and Kalie mentioned that each project is like its own company, it's got its own budget, it's got its own expenses. So you have to have a overarching, counting QuickBooks or something to say, how is the company performing? But then you've got to have all of these Excel documents that support the project by itself and all these payments. I mean, it's complicated on every single level. Well, let's go back to where I was going with this. You were extremely detailed. You worked, and I would tell you, nope, you've got to do it this way. I would show you some Excel tricks. You were so nervous about missing out expenses or something once I pointed them out to you, that by the time that you and Claire would get together for the next Zoom call, you had worked your little butt off on that Excel document. You had, okay, I was thinking this needed to have a column, this had a column. And so what I tell people a lot, and this was a really good introduction to it, is that don't be concerned. And I'm going to let you comment on this, because what I say is one thing, but when people have gone through it on the other side, it's a little bit more inspiring. I always tell people, they worry, I don't have a finance background, I don't have not good in math, and I go, no, it's just about having a logical thought of the processes that you engage in, money in, money out, you do this, you do that, and being disciplined enough to sit down and think it through and identify the details. Really, that's all it takes in my mind, and the rest comes. What's your thoughts on that, Kalie?
I would agree with that. Once I realized that you just needed to organize information, and I was like, oh, that's what I do all day long, is I organize creative information. I just need to organize number information, or logistical information, or, or legal information. And once I figured out how to just organize information, it wasn't so much like I didn't have to be a lawyer. I didn't have to be an accountant. I was an accountant, if only because I was organizing numbers.
Right.
But once I figured out how to just organize that information, I was able to excel at it a little bit better. No pun intended.
Lauren, that's the good thing to put in the chat. Really, having financial management system is really about organizing information. Even if those who've seen my webinars, I talk about it's organizing. If you think about financial data is happening, you're paying people. It's happening. It's going to happen whether you do anything with it or not, right? And I always say it doesn't matter if it's in a shoebox, an Excel document, a file, or some big accounting system. It's about organizing, aligning, and then listening to what the numbers tell you. And yes, the numbers tell you stuff, doesn't it, Kalie? Because once we got through it, the numbers started telling you, and it was starting to tell you where you were in your profitability.
Yes, I think I'll go back to what you were saying as far as having some sort of system, and it took me years to figure out what kind of system we should have as a company also within each one of our projects. And every person that we had talked to, CPA or accountant, every accountant, business advisor would try to get us on QuickBooks or Zero or figure something else out, and was trying to put us in these boxes, right? We've tried all of them. We ended up trying Zero. That was the last thing that we tried to do. And there just wasn't enough for us to edit to encompass what we needed to show to our production company who would be hiring us. So each one of these projects is its own company, it has its own employees, it has its own budget, and it has its own material list. And then I have to be able to take all of that and organize it. Sometimes the production company will pay for stuff too, and it doesn't come out of our bank, but I need it totaled so that the company knows how much we've spent. So it was very much like having to run a bunch of tiny little companies and then encompass it into a bigger spreadsheet that would say, here's how many people we paid through our company, here's how much our material and cost was. So it was like trying to figure out how to do less double entry and also stay organized on both.
Right. And Kalie, what's really interesting, and I love what we're talking about because everybody can resonate with what you're saying. So a couple key points here. First of all, you can tell Kalie knew what she needed. You knew I had to show this, I had to show that. The problem that 99.99% of small companies come into, that accountants and CPAs kind of add to the problem without recognizing this. Let me explain, and you finally figured this out through our conversations, but just for the audience's advantages, when we talk about accounting and finance, we've got lots of players. We've got bookkeepers, we got accountants, we got CPAs, we got CFOs, we got all these players. And in the small business world, they see them as all one. You know, my CPA can also be my financial advisor. Now, my background is I'm finance to a CFO, but I'm also EA as tax. So I see both of these angles, right? When we think about, and this is what I'm trying to express, when we think about taxes, we are taking historical data and we're just sticking it into a form to give to the government. When we talk about projecting profit, keeping tabs on an account, on where you are in accounting on a project and the expenses, and if this is working, that is more of a taking historical data plus forecasting. So it kind of goes out a traditional accounting's way of looking at things, right? Accounting's static because things are already done. When your type of accounting is dynamic, it's changing all the time, right? And so when we talk about QuickBooks or any accounting system, we are talking about a static system taking historical data. People believe that when they have their accounting system in place, it does all, it answers all those questions, and it doesn't. And I can't tell people, I don't care if you're the biggest company with the most expensive accounting software, you have Excel documents. No company is run or managed without Excel documents. The accounting software is just what's considered financial management, and that's management of the data to do tax returns, where managerial accounting is managing the data to make decision making, and that is outside your accounting system. And I just wanted to take a minute because what you're speaking of comes up so many times where people don't understand why their accounting software is not telling them the answers they need to, and they think because they don't have the accounting background, Kalie, they think it's them. You know that feeling when we don't have the knowledge, we think it's us, so we think we're lacking, and then we never look. And so all I'm trying to say through you and your great explanation to the audience is, it's not you guys, it's you're trying to use a hammer to put in a screw when you need a screwdriver in that case.
I think that that's extremely accurate because we just kept trying to, fit a round shape in a square hole. We're just trying very hard to make our business fit into one of these automated systems. And so with your help, we ended up creating our own Excel documents, and we had something like that because I needed to keep track.
Right.
And so I had kind of these rinky dink Excel, like very rudimentary, just organizing information and at least having it someplace. And so when we worked together, you helped us to figure out exactly like where to organize or better ways to organize that information. And so I we redid our entire, and I think we've redone the Excel sheet now twice more times to even more simplify and try to make it more efficient, because I am always striving to be more efficient. So we've but the other thing that was really helpful, or your emphasis on profit, or trying to figure out how much or estimate how much profit we would make with our company. It's so different. Every job is a different budget, and every project is different rates, and it's becomes really difficult to project anything. And that became overwhelming at one point, where we were like, I have no idea how to project what's going to happen, because um, this is new territory every other day.
Right.
So we kind of had to start advocating for ourselves more and add a percentage for us to start making a profit, because at that point we had just been breaking even every single time, and we had not been making a profit. So it was like, with your help, we really like kicked our butts to start trying to make a profit and stop being I think growing up as women in this industry, we're afraid to ask for more, ask for what we're worth. And so that was another thing that was really empowering by working with you and the SBA, was to help us recognize our worth a little bit more.
And it's interesting because really every time I see a situation like yours and I consult with you, I'm really consulting to the younger Lori. And I'll tell you what I mean. There was not that long ago, maybe within the last year and a half, I thought about it, and I thought, if the older Lori went to the younger Lori when she was 25 and had her marketing business, because remember, I didn't start in finance. I was that warm, fuzzy little marketing person, right? I would have sat her butt down and said, you are not making any money. You are paying your employees, you're paying all this, and you're going home friggin' broke, living on your savings. Okay, you're 28, 29 years old, but you're going to retire someday. And if you don't get your butt going and start saving some money and stop doing it for free, saying, well, if I just do this, then you're going to be in trouble. And what happened with my life, and I see it with so many, I didn't crash and burn financially because I just worked harder to make a little bit, right? But I eventually crashed and burned in exhaustion, where I was like, I'm done. I'm totally done from this. I see a finger. You got to comment on that.
Yeah, that was where we were at, because I think we'd launched that company, and now, I was already kind of tired and burnt out from my first company, and rolled right into my second company, and then it was taking off, and I didn't have enough time to organize ourselves in the best way possible before the next day. We were already, we made like number one in Ad Age. We were really taking off, and it was exciting, but it was, again, like a 2-year-old running down a hill, where I wasn't having enough time to sit down and I would like to say not enough time is kind of BS. You need to take time, which is what I didn't realize. Like, you just have to sit down. You have to pause and put everything on hold for one day, 1 week, and actually focus on how to organize yourself, because all these opportunities popping up are very distracting and exciting, and feel like if you say no to this one, then you're not going to have another opportunity, and you have to take as many as you can, and kind of feast or famine. And what I learned most was to not make decisions out of fear, and to slow down.
Wow, Kalie, Lauren, throw that in the chat. I mean, Kalie, do you know what things you're sharing with the audience? Because that is so true. We get so scared that we just take on every single opportunity. And I think, what I tell people a lot of times, what we're really good at and we understand is fun and comforting. Finance and organizing numbers is not. And so I see people that will contact me. I'll get to a point where they understand they're in trouble, but then I won't hear from them. They'll go, well, I was too busy. I was working. Well, you're working to not make a profit. You're just now worse off 6 months ago. But I get it. I get it. I get it. But you know what I always tell people is that if you engage in the time, you stop and you force yourself, eventually you come out on the other side where you feel more comfortable with what you are doing the other part of the time, because you feel more, I'm going to use the word, you tell me, you, Kalie, yours word, because I love this word, my personality, you feel more in control. Okay, I like to be in control. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
my word, but I'll let you say your word. And what do you finally took the time, and especially after our conversation, and you got your documents and you felt you had more of an understanding, how did it change the other parts for you?
Well, I think it allowed us to be more comfortable in life, because I think quality of life for me was like plummeting. The business was running faster, and we were getting more notable projects, and having more employees, and being able to there was a lot of really awesome things that were coming from working as hard as we were for as many hours for as low pay as we were. There's a lot of awesome things that came from it, but quality of life and being able to sit down and have dinner and have time to make dinner, or just, so I think that being able to kind of sit down and slow down for a second and organize better allowed us to spend more time in other ways that helped us to work better. Being able to have the time to make myself dinner and sit down with my family and have those moments made me happier at work.
And it does come back in producing. I thought many times, I said, when I look back at my life, I always wondered, do you do all those things and get the opportunity to make the mistakes because you have so much energy? People say, well, when you get older, your energy goes away. And I'm like, well, I'm getting, older. I'm not old by any point, but I would say my energy hasn't changed, but my willingness to expend it just in things that don't make sense, that's what changes with age. I don't think your energy changes. I think if you grow and mature and learn, your willingness to just expend it freely without fully understanding your return is what changes.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely agree. There's things that when I was 21 that I would be more than happy to put myself through, because I didn't have the experience yet and I didn't know. And so I felt like I had to take the time to work a day shift on a silly kids film and work a night shift on Batman and work 3 days straight, and felt like the networking and the time that was spent doing those hours would be worth it, and I think in a lot of ways I woke up a few years ago and realized that I had just worked for probably 10 years, and I hadn't really had much of a social life and didn't really do anything outside of working in this industry. And so it was nice to be like, hold on, let's let's look at this a little bit better, because I know I'm a better designer when I'm getting to experience life. I know that I can be more creative when I get to be inspired by things that I don't have to work on all the time.
Yeah, and I was thinking yesterday, COVID has done many bad things, but I think for many good things came out of it as well, just as true of everything in life. And I think the stopping and the forced stopping for some people, although I'm opposed to how it occurred, because it harmed so many people, but in many ways it made them have to kind of look at things, and then it allowed them to create new ways of living. I think it kind of got us off that rat race to a bit to say stop. I'd already jumped off that wheel many years prior to that, but I think for many people it did. And one thing I want to make sure I mention so I don't forget, you had talked about, you've even since talked with me, gone through 2 renditions of the Excel document. And Kalie, you might remember this, but maybe not. There was a point in time where you contacted me. I think we were in how many calls, and you were showing me something you had done with the Excel document. And I don't remember my words exactly, but I was like, okay, at this point, Kalie, you understand what you're doing. I'm not following exactly, because you had so much internal data. I would have had to spend an hour. You surpassed way beyond the simplicity, but I could tell it was done proper and intellectually sound. It's just you had so many things you were monitoring perfect, and you were just like bouncing off the screen, Zoom screen, because you were like, okay, now I can manage this and now I know this. You took what I created was this big and you made it this big and so powerful by just, and all I'm saying, guys, is you added columns and you put in data and you figured out a process of when to put the data in and you had a little check mark and things like that. You made a powerful system. You were the little kid running down the street with the Excel document, but you got to the bottom unharmed with a lot of confidence.
I think so. I mean, but it was, a lot was, I tell everybody that the SBA and it has been super helpful, because for my first company, I didn't even know that anything like this existed. I thought it would cost money, or the government would find out that I never went to business school and I was gonna have to like go to jail. Like, I don't know. I thought of like the worst possible scenarios where like I think imposter syndrome kicks in and you're like, I don't know if I can ask for help because I don't even know what I'm doing here, but I'm trying. And so I think it was, yeah, I don't know why I was so intimidated by the idea of the government business aspect of things. Like, I was always trying to file everything on the right deadlines and make sure that all of the paperwork, but it's really insecure. I don't know, I was really insecure trying to make sure everything was going to check all the correct boxes all the time. So I got overwhelmed, and it wasn't until COVID where I think we were running really good with our business so far. Like, good, I guess we were be successful in the clients we were getting, but our internal, the amount of work I was doing after work was so intense to balance all of the books for all of the projects. We're running 5 projects at a time. It was a lot. Then our shop got robbed. I had to figure out how to do insurance because I never needed to file a claim before. I had the insurance. I figured out how to set up business insurance, but I've never needed to file a claim. And then our whole shop got robbed again on Christmas Eve, of 2019. And then we started to, I think Claire and I in January of 2020 were like, hey, here's our time. We need to slow down. Let's pause a little bit. We had just cut ties with our old business partner, and we really wanted to focus on organizing ourselves better because we were tired of running down the hill as fast as we were. So we'd gotten our whole shop, everything all set up. We cleaned it all out and simplified ourselves a little bit more. And we opened the doors on March 3rd, I believe, of 2020. And Claire and I were like, okay, we're ready. This is so exciting. Something weird's happening in the news, but it's going to be fine. 2 weeks later, we'll be back at some point soon. And then we rushed to try to figure out how to apply for the SBA. And I think that's really when I started or an SBA loan. And that's when we really started to learn more and more and be like, I have no option. I need to reach out to these people. And so I started reaching out to the SBA, and I was like, oh, they're actually very helpful and totally free. And they're just like me, and they've had, or way more experienced, but aren't judging me and aren't thinking that because I don't have a business degree or college degree that I shouldn't be in the room with them. So I guess it was really so helpful. And I tell everybody that, if they're having problems in business, to just call the SBA, because you guys have been so awesome.
Wow, Lauren, you would think, Kalie, we were paying her to do a advertisement for us, and that's really interesting to say, because you're right. I didn't even consider it, but no, nobody makes judgments upon anybody within this industry. And for me, I had always wanted to work with the smaller companies, but smaller companies don't go out and hire people of my elaborateness because they don't have the money for it, right? So when I had an opportunity to work with the SBDC and then have the government pay me and then have them offer be able to get access to me for free, of course it's not at like a private, but it didn't matter to me because to me, I have much more respect for I didn't go to business school. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm really trying hard and I really want to know. Then I went to business school. I know everything. And, I much prefer working in the industry that I am and with the people that I am, just for reasons of meeting someone like yourself. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I never even considered anybody being intimidated by talking with a business advisor, because I've been the business advisor. So I think that was a great point that I've never had expressed, and I'm glad you did. But Kalie, can you believe we've been talking for an hour? We're done here. But I want to, before we go, you have given so many great gems in your sharing and your honesty, and it's really been a pleasure. If you were to just make a few comments to leave with the audience on what you've learned along the way and you'd like to share, I want to give you some time to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on. This is really nice. I feel like I try to express to as many people as I can, like, learn from my mistakes. I've made all of them. Please, if I can save you anything, then that has allowed me to make these mistakes with value, right? So I think, don't be scared. All the crazy, like, bold caps, fine print on all of the business paperwork it's not as scary as one would think. And that you, I think maybe checking your imposter syndrome at the door is very helpful. I mean, go into it with.
I love it. Lauren, we got to put checking your imposter syndrome. I have never heard that, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Kalie, thank you so very much. And by the way, I want you to know the chat is going wild. They're saying this is great, very playful, so many gems. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, we have an audience that just appreciates this sharing on such a great level. And I know as you and I are talking, you don't get to see it. I get kind of glimpse every once in a while. So I always like to give you feedback and let you know that your words and your sharing and your honesty was very appreciated today. Lauren, let's bring you into this.
So good. I don't have anything else to say. That's it. It was so good. Kalie, I used to be a wardrobe stylist. So that life. And then I had kids and I was like, oh yeah, they're not coming into this life. So
Yeah.
I commend you on being able to just get above the toxicity and be able to navigate it, because it is. And like you mentioned, the jobs that you took and, the pay that you should have received and just didn't, like, it's cutthroat. A lot of people think it's glamorous. It is not. So congratulations to you.
Congratulations to you on getting out.
Everybody in our audience, notice that when Lauren comes on, she shares a lot of, having background marketing, having background. I think we got to have Lauren as a guest. I'm going to have to interview her next. She keeps dropping these little gems every single time. I did not know that, Lauren.
It was my past life, Lori.
I got many of those.
I think that is warrants a good interview, though. I think that.
Absolutely. Well, I know that Lauren, you're going to stay on longer. I know some people,
Yep.
I just noticed my name wanting to get in touch with me. Please reach out to Lauren, email her. I will get in touch with you. We'll get on a one-on-one and talk. And Kalie, say hi to Claire. I know Claire couldn't be here today at this time. She's working on a big project, so I miss seeing her. And I just want to say thank you for the opportunity of meeting both of you and working with you on your Excel and your business planning. I guess I kind of got you to that point, and we haven't talked in, I don't know, it's been maybe a year, maybe less than that. But hearing you talk today and your calmness made me even realize today how far you've come from the first conversation when you were worried and nervous. And it just brought me pleasure seeing where you're at today. It really did. So I thank you from my own personal perspective to see the new and improved Kalie without her imposter syndrome.
Well, and thank you, because I am really grateful for every hour you spent with Claire and I being like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, it was great. Well, Lauren and I are going to leave you. You're going to stay on for a little bit, collect any information from the audience and how they need to get in touch with me. Kalie, thank you so much, and reach out to me. You know, I'm here and one of your biggest fans.
No, I will. I'll definitely reach out soon. It was nice meeting you, Lauren.
Nice
See you
meeting you too. Take care. Bye. And
And
goodbye
y'all,
to you too, Lori. Thank you.
everybody else, thank you for joining the show. I mean, I see the numbers are staying there, and I just want to say another big heartfelt. Lauren, can you believe that we are almost a year and we've got so
No.
many people that come into the audience, and our frequent flyers and our new people? I mean, you guys make it fun. This was a dream of mine, as I said many times, to have this talk show for you guys to feel good, to feel inspired, to hear people in your same situation. I always say I hated those entrepreneurship programs where you would start resonating with the person and they go, and now I own a Ferrari. And then you go, okay, I feel like shit now. You know, I hated that. Right. And so I love real conversation. I love real things. I love things that are inspirational, and the shows, because of the guest, has turned into that. I just get the great opportunity to interview them. And I want to do a shout out before I leave to Lauren, my colleague, who became my, my joining into this insanity, and has stayed with me, and has been with me since the beginning, and has been the foundation keeping everything going on behind the scenes. A big appreciation to our Lauren as well. Okay, I'm out of here, Lauren. You take over from here, and I will see everybody next week when we're talking about banking and getting ready for whatever comes down the road. Bye, guys.
Bye, Lori. Thank you. All right, everyone. So any of you who are looking to have a meeting with Lori, please be sure to shoot me an email. I dropped my email into the chat, but I will put it in there one more time. And like Lori mentioned, we will be back on next Wednesday at, oh, well, that wasn't the right link. I'm sorry about that, guys. I'm going to put my email in right now. We will be back next week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Small Biz Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate you guys coming. Yeah. And that is my email address. All right, everyone. Thank you, Jenny, and bye, Emma. Thank you, Ray. I see all the thank yous. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming and just being appreciative of us coming to you every Wednesday. All right, now, so my email is in there. It's lsimpson@lbcc.edu if you'd like to set an appointment with Lori. And again, we'll see you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Thanks so much. Bye.